The courtroom floated above a dying star, glowing gold and red through the glass ceiling. It was the size of a city, filled with thousands of alien leaders from every corner of the galaxy. Sharp eyes, long ears, glowing skins, they all stared toward the center stage. And there, standing alone, was a human. He wore a simple, dark uniform, no weapons, no army behind him, just silence. Above him, on a high platform, sat the judges of the Galactic Tribunal, 12 ancient beings known for never showing mercy. At their center, the Varnak judge leaned forward, his voice cold and cruel. Humanity is violent. They burn their worlds. They destroy weaker species. And now, they bring that danger into our stars. Laughter followed cruel, sharp, echoing through the chamber. The human didn't speak. He just looked up and held their gaze, not with fear, not with anger, but with something else, something deeper. The silence stretched longer than expected. Whispers moved through the crowd. Why wasn't the human defending his world? Why wasn't he afraid? The judge slammed his staff down. Say something, human. You stand here for the final judgment of Earth. Still, the man said nothing, but his eyes scanned the tribunal. Each judge, each delegate, as if memorizing their faces, the laughter began to fade. One alien leaned toward another. Why is he so calm? The human finally moved just a small step forward. He opened his mouth to speak, but then stopped and smiled. That smile made something cold run down the backs of even the bravest warriors in the room, because suddenly they weren't sure if Earth was truly alone, or if they had just made a terrible mistake. The Varnak judge's voice thundered again. Speak, or accept your punishment. His words echoed across the chamber like a blade drawn from its sheath. The crowd leaned forward. Some aliens smirked, waiting for the human to beg. Others prepared their votes, confident this trial would be short. But the human did not beg. He stepped forward slowly, calm, controlled. Then he finally spoke. You laugh at us, he said, his voice low but steady. But tell me, do you even know what you're laughing at? A heavy silence followed. The judges blinked. Delegates exchanged glances. The Varnak judge growled. We laugh at your history, your chaos, your endless wars. The human nodded once. Yes, that's what you saw. Our worst moments, our blood, our battles. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small device, no bigger than a stone. With a tap, a glowing hologram appeared in the air above him. It showed scenes from Earth's history wars, nuclear fire, and collapsing cities. Screams echoed faintly. This is what you showed everyone, the human said. This is your proof. More laughter echoed from the crowd, and yet the human paused. His eyes sharpened. You showed only our darkness. You ignored everything. Elsie tapped the device again. Suddenly the images changed. Children pulling each other from rubble. Soldiers carrying enemy wounded. Scientists working together to save a dying planet. Strangers giving their lives for others. The courtroom grew quiet. The human looked up. You saw monsters, but maybe. You didn't want to see the full truth. For the first time, the Varnak judge didn't speak, because the human wasn't shouting. He wasn't angry. He was just telling the truth, and somehow that was more dangerous than any weapon Earth could ever build. The human stood beneath the glowing lights, surrounded by silence. The tribunal had mocked Earth. They had shown its wars, its chaos. But now, he showed something else. He tapped the device again. This time, the hologram showed a woman-on Earth doctor stitching up an alien child's wounds during a battlefield ceasefire. Gasps rose from the gallery. A second image, human firefighters, forming a chain to pull survivors from a crashed alien ship. Then another, an old man, standing alone in front of tanks, refusing to let war begin. The human's voice was calm but steady. You watched our past through a cracked lens. You picked our worst days and built your judgment on that. One of the alien delegates leaned forward. You dare challenge the tribunal's evidence. The human looked directly at him. I don't challenge it. I complete it. He turned back to the crowd. You say we are dangerous, that we are violent, but we're also the ones who ran into fire to save strangers. We're the ones who held peace talks even when we were bleeding. You didn't see that? Or maybe you didn't want to. Some in the audience shifted uncomfortably. One alien lowered his eyes. Another clenched His jaw, the Varnock judge, narrowed his gaze. These are isolated acts. The human didn't flinch. So are the crimes you showed. The difference is, we admit both. You only showed one side. He paused. I came here to be judged, but I won't let Earth be sentenced based on half a truth. Silence followed, not out of fear, but because for the first time the tribunal realized something terrifying. The human wasn't trying to win. He was trying to wake them up. The chamber, once filled with laughter and mockery, now sat in uneasy silence. The human stepped forward, his voice rising not in anger, but in something far stronger conviction. You think we're monsters, he said, because we fight, because we bleed, because we refuse to bow. He looked at the 12 judges, one by one. But do you know why we fight? He pointed to the hologram, still floating above, a scene played of humans shielding alien civilians. From gunfire during an invasion, no reward, no orders, just instinct. We fight to protect. We fight because pain taught us what peace costs. We bleed so others don't have to. The Varnock judge's lip curled. Words mean nothing. Can't change history. The human didn't blink. Then, let's look at yours. He tapped the device again. New images appeared. Secret wars, alien slave colonies, destroyed, planets by order of the same tribunal, now sitting in judgment. Whispers filled the room. Shock, fear, rage. You judged us as violent, the human said. But what are you when no one is watching? The judges froze. He took another step forward. You laugh at humans. But maybe what you're really afraid of is that we're not so different from you. The chamber held its breath. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't begging. He was holding up a mirror, and the galaxy didn't like what it saw. One judge leaned forward. This trial is no longer in our control. The human's voice dropped low. It never was. And with that, the room once full of pride and certainty was filled instead with doubt and fear. The tribunal chamber was no longer laughing. What once felt like a performance mocking Earth in front of the galaxy was now slipping from there. Gripdot, the human, still calm, raised his hand and activated one final file. This time, the hologram didn't show Earth. It showed them a hidden transmission. Stolen reports, secret tribunal orders, signed, sealed, and erased from public records. An entire colony wiped out. Not by humans, but by a tribunal-led strike. And blamed on Earth, gasps filled the courtroom. Some delegates stood in shock. Others looked away. The Varnock judge's voice cracked. This is forbidden. How did you get this? The human didn't answer directly. He simply said, truth has a way of escaping, even from the darkest cages. More files played. A galaxy-wide cover-up. Alien rebels. Silenced. A human peace team destroyed before talks could begin. By the very people who claimed to want peace. You built this court to protect the innocent, the human said, but you used it to protect yourselves. One judge stood up, his hands shaking. We had no choice. There was chaos. There always is, the human replied, but we didn't lie about ours. The crowd was no longer whispering. They were angry, confused, some were afraid, and so many were beginning to believe him. The tribunal guards stepped forward. Enough, the Varnock judge shouted. This trial is over. But the human turned to face the crowd, not the judges. No, he said, it's only just begun. And in that moment, the balance of power shifted, not with weapons, not with threats, but with truth, the kind that could burn down empires. The tribunal chamber, once loud with judgment and pride, now stood in absolute silence. No one moved. No one spoke. The holograms were gone, but the images they left behind burned in every mind. Crimes, silenced truths, and a human who refused to fall. The human stood at the center, still and calm, his eyes locked on the judges. You called this a trial, he said quietly, but it was a sentence from the start. You never meant to listen. A long pause. Then he added, but now they're listening. He looked out at the gallery, thousands of alien representatives. Some had tears in their eyes, some looked ashamed, and some looked furious, not at Earth, at the tribunal. A tall insectoid delegate stood up slowly. I was told Earth destroyed my world's aid ship. I now see it was you. Others began to rise to whispers of support, murmurs of regret. The High Council of Judges didn't speak. They stared at the human like he was no longer just a representative, but a threat to their entire system. The Varnock judge finally stood. "We will now vote." The room held its breath. One by one, the lights above the judges began to glow green for innocent, red for guilty. The first light, green dot; the second, red dot; the third, green dot. Each vote felt like thunder in the silent chamber. The human didn't flinch. He didn't smile. He just stood still, watching the fate of his planet hang in the balance. 7 judges down, 5 to go. A single green light could change everything or destroy Earth. Forever no one spoke. The galaxy waited. And in that waiting, fear returned. But not for humanity. This time it was the tribunal that feared what came next. Just as the 9th judge's light turned green, a deep hum shook the floor. A second later, boom and explosion ripped through the chamber wall. Smoke poured in. Screams echoed. Alien delegates scattered. Guards rushed to shield the judges. Out of the smoke stepped a masked figure, tall, armored, and moving fast. He wasn't just an attacker, he was an assassin, and his target was clear. "The Earthling dies now," he shouted. He raised a plasma blade, rushing toward the human. The tribunal guards hesitated to slow, but the human didn't run. He stepped back, lifted the fallen staff of a guard, and blocked the first strike with raw instinct. Metal clashed. With light, a second blow came faster, sharper. The human ducked. The blade grazed his shoulder, burning flesh, but he didn't fall. Instead, he tutored hard. The staff struck the assassin's helmet, cracking it. The mask shattered, revealing a face twisted in hate. An alien extremist, from a species Earth, had once defeated in war. "You don't deserve mercy," the alien spat. The human, bleeding and tired, didn't reply. He only stood his ground. Security finally tackled the assassin, dragging him away. The chamber was still again, this time filled with smoke and the sharp smell of blood. The human swayed slightly, holding his burned arm still standing. Still, silent, the Varnock judge rose, eyes wide. This attack was not authorized. The human looked up. His voice was hoarse. "No, but it tells the truth." He looked across the chamber. "You didn't want a trial. You wanted an execution." And now the whole galaxy had seen it. Not just Earth on trial, but the system itself. And the question echoed silently in every corner of the room. What if the human was right? The human's uniform was torn, his arm scorched from the blade. Blood dripped from his side, soaking into the polished floor of the tribunal chamber. And still he stood. No guards helped him, no medics moved. They just watched, because something had changed. He didn't stand like a victim. He stood like a warning. The Varnock judge, now pale and silent, stared at him with something close to fear. "You survived an assassination," the judge muttered. "Why stay? You've made your point." The human slowly lifted his head. His voice, though weak, carried across the chamber like thunder. "I didn't come here to survive," he said. "I came here to finish what your lies started." He took one step forward. "Despite the pain, you call us violent. You call us dangerous, but look what happened today. I spoke, and you sent a killer." He paused, then added, "You fear us not because we are cruel, but because we are human. Because we don't give up. Because we don't fall. An alien." Ambassador in the crowd stood, then another. "Even former enemies of Earth. He speaks truth," one said quietly. More voices followed, some angry, some ashamed, some full of wonder. The tribunal guards stood frozen, and then the 10th judge voted green dot. So did the 11th. The final vote hovered above the high judge's hand. Everyone turned to him. He stared at the human, bloodied, burned, but standing tall, and for the first time in tribunal history, the final judge hesitated. The galaxy held its breath, not for a verdict, but because they were witnessing something far greater, a human who refused to kneel, a voice that wouldn't be silenced, and a truth that could no longer be hidden. The high judge's hand trembled above the final vote, crystal red or green, guilty or innocent. Across the galaxy, billions watched the live broadcast. Every species, every system, every leader. The human, still standing despite his wounds, waited silently. No words, no fear, just presence. The high judge finally spoke. "This tribunal was created to protect truth," he said. "But today, truth came from the one we judged." He lowered his hand. The final crystal glowed green. Gasps filled the air. Some aliens cheered, others fell into stunned silence. A few shouted in protest, but no one could deny what had just happened. Darth had been declared not guilty. The human blinked once. No smile, no celebration, just a quiet nod, as if he already knew this would happen. The Varnock judge slammed his staff, furious. "This is a mistake. They are dangerous." The High Judge turned to him. "So are we." The gallery erupted into noisome clapping, some arguing, some rising in anger or awe, but the human didn't look at them. He turned to the Camara, the one streaming across the stars, and finally spoke. "To those who still fear us, understand this. We are not perfect. We are not saints. But we are not your enemy." He took a painful breath. "Test us again, and you'll see our strength, but judge us fairly. And you might just find an ally." With that, he stepped down. No security, no guards, just a trail of blood and truth behind him. The tribunal had judged Earth, but in the end, it was the galaxy that had been judged, and now nothing would ever be the same. The news spread faster than light. Earth declared innocent. Human representative defies tribunal. Truth breaks the chains of power. Across the galaxy, on every world, the story echoed. In bars, schools, military bases. And royal courts people watched the replay. A lone human, wounded and surrounded, had stood before the most powerful council in the universe, and won, but not with violence, not with threats, with truth. Back on Earth, people cried and cheered as the verdict came in. Children hugged their parents, veterans stood proud. For once, humanity wasn't defending itself with weapons, but with words. And those words had changed the galaxy in distant systems. Old enemies of Earth called for peace talks on neutral planets. Citizens demanded reforms in the tribunal. Even some judges resigned in shame. But the human who started it all was gone. No one knew his name. No one saw where he went after the trial. His ship disappeared before the media could reach it. Some said he returned to Earth in silence. Others believed he was already preparing for what came next, because peace is never permanent. And somewhere, hidden in the shadows of the stars, new threats were already rising, threats that now feared Earth not for its weapons, but for its will. In a galaxy full of conquerors and tyrants, one truth had been proven. You can silence a fleet, you can silence a world, but you can't silence a human who speaks for all of us. They had laughed at first, but now they listen, and they remember. Earth stood alone, and Earth did not fall.